All right, this is Adrian Switchdog here. I'm just giving a little disclaimer at the start of the video. This episode of the podcast was a little bit finicky. I had some internet connection issues, but they were resolved a little while into the episode. So don't fret too much. It does improve a bit. So I apologize for that, and hopefully it will be better in the future. This is the second episode of the Between Two Wise Trees podcast. The first will be edited and uploaded later on. I just wanted to get this one done first because we finished recording it recently, and I wanted it to go up on the channel first to kind of give a taste of what this is going to be all about. But the pilot episode will go up eventually as well. There are spoilers for Kill Bill 1 and 2, so please be mindful of that. If you haven't seen the movies and you want to watch them, please go do so first. And above all else, please enjoy the podcast and give us your feedback. I'll be looking through it. So thank you, and please enjoy.
I guess I'll get us kicked off here. This is the second official episode of Between Two Wise Trees with Adrian and Dan. And today we've got our first special guest on, ECB, also known as Extremely Critical Belgian on Letterboxd.
Hello. I don't really know how to do this. I've never been a podcast before. Should I introduce myself?
Yeah, but do it in Dutch so nobody understands.
Ja, hallo, mijn naam is Lucas. En dus, ik heb echt geen idee wat dat ik hiermee naartoe moet gaan. Dus, okay, so, shall we just begin?
Yeah, we can begin. Nobody understood that probably, so.
Yeah, probably.
All right. So over the past few days, I think we all watched Kill Bill Volumes 1 and 2. And so I know both of you guys have seen these movies already and really like them, or at least half of them. This is my first experience watching both, and I definitely have my opinions. Of course, this is my first time, so I'm still fresh off the rails from this, but I definitely have my opinion on which one I like better. It's not that shocking, but we should probably just start right away with Volume 1 and just give your overall thoughts on that film.
Who should begin?
You can begin. I'm curious to see what you have to say about both of these movies. So.
Okay, so I saw these movies like a week or two ago, and to be quite honest, at first when I started the first movie, I was expecting to hate it because
okay.
It's very different from most Tarantino movies because these tend to be very slow, a lot of dialogue. The violence is definitely what people remember the most about them, but it's always building up towards it, whereas Kill Bill is just like 10 minutes in and instantly shit's going down the drain. And
yep, that's true.
I did find it shocking at first, but then as I was starting to follow the plot, I was starting to appreciate it a lot more, and in the end, it ended up being my favorite in his filmography.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much where I went with it too. Like this is my first Tarantino film ever that I've ever seen, but like immediately as I started watching it, I could just tell, like, yeah, this is a Tarantino movie. But like it's so unique how it's portrayed though. Like it's got a certain style to it that like many other like notable directors have. Like he's got like a very specific filmmaking style, but it's just so unique, just like the way it all comes together. Like I was just so shocked. Like I legitimately had no no idea going into it that there was going to be that whole like 8-minute animated section. I was thrilled by that. So
Yeah, I mean, I always know a little bit about what movies I'm going to watch beforehand, but that part I had no idea that Tarantino made anything that was animated.
yeah, it was quite shocking. Uh, Dan, what do you think about the first movie? I know you're a big fan of both, but let's just start with the first one. What do you think about that?
Um, yeah, the first one is like insanely kick-ass. It's I remember watching it for the first time a couple years back, and yeah, I was just floored by everything in it. You know, the music goes insanely hard in like every scene it's in. It's always so appropriately used, and God, I can't think of the guy who made it. What was his name? God, I know he had worked on like previous films that Tarantino I loved.
Are you talking about the score?
Yeah, the score. Yeah.
I'll check real quick.
What's I think it's like his last name was like Morricone or something. I don't know. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong anyways. But yeah, just the music fits so well with everything. The way that the action is shot is really fluid. It's super entertaining, and I think Tarantino's grindhouse aesthetic like really lends itself really well to the tone of this film and just like the overall film's goals are, right? Because it's
Mhm.
like it's one big homage to samurai films,
Yeah.
and just yeah, his really grindhouse cheesy tone lends itself so well, but I'm still able to take it seriously too, and that's what I love about these movies, right?
I'm looking right now to see if I can find the uh I can't find the composer. I don't know why.
Really?
But
Let's see
while I was
here.
looking though, I did see something else I was kind of shocked to find out about. Um, I
What?
had no idea that Uma Thurman also was a writer on this movie. I did not know that at all.
Oh, dude, that's badass.
Yeah. She's already said she's already like definitely like ties the whole film together. Like
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I
no,
just think
her
like
performance is the bride
her
is so
acting is
good.
just so on point for this character.
Mm-hmm.
Uh
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
you really feel the hatred.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's true. And that's like the whole theme of the movie too is like her trying to get over her hatred and like working through it by killing everybody.
Yeah, it says it was composed by Ennio Morricone, but I'm most likely pronouncing that wrong. But that's how I'm reading it. Then also
I think it's
RZA and
Morricone.
Lars Ulrich. Yeah, Morricone.
Oh,
And
okay.
yeah, he had worked on so many movies that Tarantino loved, and yeah, his composing skills are just off the charts in this movie, man.
Yeah, it's definitely true.
I do want to ask one opinion. What's your opinion on Akira? Because I seen the score you gave it, but I just want to like hear your thoughts a little bit more.
I just didn't feel like reviewing it because I went through the movie pretty
Mm-hmm.
quickly without paying too much attention to it because I just didn't feel engaged with it whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to really explain. Like, I think my biggest gripe with the movie is nothing really story wise. It's just I hate the way that the characters look.
The look.
Have you ever heard some kind of criticism that the faces just look too small? Because that's something that really bugged me.
Um, I don't know. I actually I'm on the side that I love the character designs. I'm a huge fan of Katsuhiro Otomo. Like his character designs. I just love them. Then I don't know, they're really expressive. Like just the way that then the the lip syncing. You know how most anime, like what they'll do is they'll just dub it over like with lip syncing and everything with even like on the subs, right? They'll just dub everything over.
Oh,
Um,
we were kind of going off on a tangent about you can.
And I understood nothing about that.
yeah, I didn't understand that either. Oh man.
This is going well.
You're gonna have to do a lot of editing, Adrian.
Yeah, I realize that.
All right. So what were you asking?
You can finish talking about Akira.
Are you fixing your audio?
Yeah, hold on.
Okay, anyways, back to Akira. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't have any issues with the character designs. I think the animation is like almost like unrivaled at this point. It's like insane, like how much detail and like fluidity is in the animation, in my opinion, at least.
So I won't deny that. I mean, that's pretty much the case with all popular animes that we see on these kinds of streaming services. But I don't
Yeah.
know. I found the character designs just too distracting to really get invested. Maybe that sounds like a really
hmm
big nitpick, but I can't help it. I just found it really bothering.
Yeah, I mean, with Akira, like I feel like the main criticism is that the story just doesn't make any damn sense. And so yeah, I guess it's definitely new to hear somebody criticize the character designs because
Yeah, but
yeah, I love them. I just
maybe,
think they look really great. But yeah,
maybe
no, I
I'm
definitely understand.
maybe I'm just droning on about it too much, so people will think that's my only problem with the movie. But no, that's not what I mean. It's just generally
hmm
speaking, I found it not very well paced. I just didn't feel
hmm
any time to actually get invested in the characters before one of them starts going evil. You, I
hmm
didn't get a clear look at what's their role in this world, or I don't know, and the whole science fiction and fantasy elements behind it. I just didn't understand whatsoever.
hmm Yeah, it's definitely not a great first viewing movie. However, God, I watching it, like I just kind of fell in love with it. Like just the disjointed story, the incredibly weird pacing. And what it did was it actually made me want to get into the manga, and the manga explains so much more, and the pacing is so much better. But yeah, no, it's definitely not a great first viewing movie. I can say that much. And yeah, no, it also just generally is not insanely well paced, and the story is told in such a fucking weird way, right? So yeah, no, not liking is definitely something I completely understand.
But at the same time, it's been a while since I first saw it, so I can't really remember too much about it.
hmm
If I hated it, then I would still have a lot to say about it, but as it is, I just barely remember what happened in it.
Yeah, for sure. God, yeah, no, it's just like I don't know. I just really got into it recently, and I was like, damn, I don't know. It's such a fun movie for me to watch. I think there's just something with me and movies about delinquents because like I also fucking love A Clockwork Orange, and that one just centers around delinquents, right? And yeah, I don't
Oh,
know. It's
I'm
fun.
planning to get to that movie eventually, but it just didn't happen up until now. I'm planning to
hmm
finish all of Stanley Kubrick's movies.
Yeah, I'm almost done with them. I just gotta watch some of his ones that aren't as talked about. Then I also gotta watch Eyes Wide Shut. That's another one I gotta watch.
Oh, that one I actually saw pretty recently.
Really?
It's weird. That's all I can really say about it.
Yeah, like the Arrested Kubrick filmography is just fucking weird.
No, but at least I, I really want to explain what exactly I thought about it without spoiling too much. Are you okay with
hmm
that?
Can you hear me
Um,
any better now?
I think so.
I guess.
I moved out to my car, so I don't know if it's better or worse now.
Yeah, it
Actually, it
sounds
kind of
better.
sounds better.
It does? Okay, that's good. That's good.
So where were we?
We're talking about Eyes Wide Shut. Honestly, if you could keep it spoiler free, that'd be amazing.
How did we get
But
on Eyes Wide Shut? How did we get here? What?
I don't even know, honestly.
Shall we just go back to Kill Bill?
Yeah, let's go back to
Well,
Kill Bill.
if you can hear me well enough now, we can go back on topic now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, good. I'm glad we're finally getting somewhere at least. Okay, so I know we can talk about those movies another time. Hopefully, like
Mhm.
when I'm in a better situation.
I was
Yeah.
not aware of how bad the connection was going to be, but hopefully it's better here. So
Hmm.
okay, good. Now we were talking about the composer. What was the composer's name again?
Ennio Morricone.
Okay, I'm not going to remember that, but they did an amazing job on the score as well.
Hmm.
And also, I also mentioned like Uma Thurman writing some of the script too. I don't think is she known for anything else other than Kill Bill.
Well,
Yeah.
she played in Pulp Fiction.
Oh, so mostly Tarantino though, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Well, she's been in some. She was in The House That Jack Built. She played like the very first victim in that movie. And she's been in quite a bit actually, like outside of Tarantino. Even now that I think of it, but I can't really name an insane amount on the top of my head.
Yeah, this is literally the only thing I know her from. So
Hmm.
But she apparently hasn't worked with Tarantino for a very long time because of an accident that happened during the filming of the second film.
Hmm.
She
what
during
happened with filming?
during the bit where I don't even know where it was and where the movie ends. She goes driving to I don't know. I can't remember. Damn it. Okay, so the point is, during the second film, there's a bit where she's driving a car down a rocky road. But during the filming of that scene, she apparently crashed the car. And the idea was that she was supposed to have a stunt double doing it for her, but Tarantino insisted that she do it herself.
Hmm.
Hmm, interesting. Well,
Maybe I'm getting off topic.
No. It's
it's
on.
okay.
It's on topic.
Yeah, no, I didn't know about that, so that's interesting. Let's see. Where do we? I'm sorry, this is so like unscripted, but like, where do we want to go from here? Like, do you want to talk about like, the one thing I definitely have to mention is just like, the entire uh, like crazy 88's fight sequence. Like that was so John
Hmm.
Wick. Like I loved that whole part. That was awesome.
The
Yeah.
Especially the part where the lights turned off and the background turned blue for some reason.
Oh yeah, that
Hmm.
was look with, and it shows them like the silhouettes there too.
Yeah, I love that.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I love that during a lot of the movie, but especially during that scene, he changes like the style up like 4 different times. Like it's like black and white, and then it's color, and then it's that silhouette. It's really cool.
Hmm.
It's all just for show, technically speaking, but it's just so much fun to watch. I really don't know
Hmm.
why it works. It just does.
Yeah, it really does though. Like it's really weird because talking about Kill Bill is strange because like it's such an awesome movie, but at the same time it's like there are just certain things it's like it's hard to explain because there's so much going on with not just the plot but like the filmmaking. It's just like it's just
Hmm.
constantly in your face with all these different styles and stuff. So
Yeah, for example, that tune that always plays when she's angry, like during the beginning.
oh yeah,
That's just become such an iconic thing nowadays. It was even mentioned in the Mitchells and the versus the Machines.
yeah, like that's a good movie too, by the way. But like that I had no idea that little stinger was from this movie. Like I there's so much stuff that's from this movie that I literally had no idea about. So
Yeah, me neither. And just the whole whenever someone gets cut, like it gets a limb cut off, and then suddenly there's an entire fountain of blood splattering out of it. It's just so
I
bizarre,
love that.
but it's also hilarious for that reason.
Yeah, it is really funny. Um, like what do you guys think about like the overall like pacing of the plot though? Like I had a hard time following at first, but over time I kind of just like fell into the groove of the narrative and how it was going, even though the first movie doesn't explain a ton.
Should I begin?
Yeah, you go.
All right. I'm already used to the whole. Tarantino sometimes makes his films out of order, out of chronological order. But my first film from him was Pulp Fiction, so I was pretty much used to it. It's not nearly as confusing in this case as it was with that film.
Okay. I've not, again, this is my first Tarantino film, so this is like my first experience with it, but um I mean I was still able to follow it for the most part, but it's not until the second movie where I start to like really understand what's happening.
Hmm.
We'll get into like the second film here in a second and like how they compare to each other, but like just what do you guys think about like the differences? Like Dan, I know you like the second movie a lot. So
Yeah.
do you think that like the do you think the plot like it gets better with the second film, or uh do you think the first film still does a good job like setting everything up?
Well, the first film does a fantastic job of setting everything up, in my opinion. It's giving the audience just enough to know what's going on and connect with these characters, but still leaving some things ambiguous to keep us guessing, right? And to sort of keep the audience just waiting for part two. And yeah, that's what part two does so well, in my opinion, is sort of justifying a lot of what happens in part one and just justifying a lot of what happens in part two as well, just with a lot of the ending stuff. And yeah, I don't know. I love both of them just about the same, honestly. Yeah.
Um
What you just said about keeping things ambiguous for the second film, that's something I
Mhm.
really noticed about this one because, it's still technically a first parter and some things need to still be wrapped up. But what it builds up in that movie alone, it still gets somewhat of a conclusion. So you feel that something has been achieved by the end.
Mhm.
yeah, and I mean it's worth noting that they originally were supposed to be together. It was supposed to be just like a 4 hour long epic, but they split it up because it was
Mhm.
too long. But
Yeah.
I don't know, because I know that there is a cut that has both films in it together.
Mhm.
Um, and I will get into my criticisms with the second film in a little bit here, because I do have some points to make about it. But I just think that the
Mhm.
first film stands on its own as being so good. Like honestly, like even though of course there needed to be a second part because there's just too much left open for interpretation. But I legitimately like if I just watched the first movie over and over again and never saw part two, I would probably be fine with that just because it's so good for what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so just like I don't know, I think like not knowing too much about the story kind of made it more engaging to me in a way. Like the second part adds so much, and I think that the second part is so much more artistic than the first film. Like it takes itself way more seriously than the first one for sure. But I don't know. There's just something about the first one that like I've not seen in any other film. Like when I watched part two, um like I've seen other movies that look like that. It's a really well done, it's really well made, but like part one is just so unique to me.
Mhm.
Well, maybe it's because it doesn't take itself very seriously.
That's probably true. And I guess I am kind of a fan of those kind of films. I'm a fan of both is the thing. But just when it comes to the story that was already like the precedent that was set by part one, it made me just want to kind of have more of that. And I think that's the big reason why part two isn't quite as like notable as the first part.
Mhm.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Yeah. So we can get more into part two now because I think that's where we'll have more of a discussion because we're all pretty much in agreement. Part one is just a really great film, but part two is where it gets more interesting because
Mhm.
it goes for a different style for the most part. Um, it's a lot more traditional of a action martial arts kind of film, and there are parts that I like better about it compared to the first. But I think overall, I do miss the all the unique styles that it throws that the first part throws at you. But
Mhm.
so I want to hear your thoughts first, Dan. Like, what about the second part makes it just as good to you? Like to say like it's also another like 5-star movie.
Well, again, it's like for me, it's taking the first one and using a lot of the first one's more serious beats and sort of giving the audience an emotional payoff, in my opinion, right? And another thing is like they both are technically homaging different martial arts movies. Whereas the first one's more of like a samurai film. The second one is more like it's more homaging kung fu films of the time. And because like one thing that I noticed while watching the second one this time around is that anytime a sword attempts to get pulled out, it gets pulled right back in, and then they go immediately to hand, right?
That
Or
is
am I
true.
just
Yeah.
or yeah,
Really? I didn't notice that.
No,
yeah.
they do. There's so many scenes where they're unsheathing their swords and then it just gets put back in, and it's almost like a joke, and that might be intentional because it
Mhm.
just happens so often. I noticed, and that definitely was because they were focusing more on the actual martial arts and kung fu, which I forget the name of like the kung fu master
Mhm.
she trains with, but I love that whole sequence. It felt very nostalgic.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's my favorite part of the second film because it's just so
Yeah.
silly. Like just as something as simple as the sound effects when she's swinging her hair around.
And
That caught me off guard.
yeah,
Yeah.
and just the idea of him always stroking his beard after he said even the most slightly profound thing is just so funny to me. Just every time he
Mhm.
just does that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I that's probably my favorite part of the movie, and it's also I really like just like even just the idea of like he changed up the camera filter. I don't know if he probably did use a completely different camera to shoot those
Yeah,
sections.
yeah, he
So like
was.
yeah,
Mhm.
I love that little decision there to do that because it did set it apart from the rest of the film, which takes is for the most part pretty linear compared to the first one. So I did appreciate that. And I also just really like the way they built up like chapters like 7 and 8 and 9 is
Mhm.
because you take a little bit of a detour of her being buried underground, like how are we gonna get out of this one, Batman? And then you take a little detour to the origins where we get to learn some more about that, and then we come back and she puts those skills to use. I think that's really good, pacing and writing.
Mhm.
And I also like how when she's getting in the fight with the L driver, is that her name?
Ellie, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ellie, that part of the film also comes back again. That she also has ties to that master.
Mhm.
Mhm. The honestly, I'll put a spoiler warning at the start of the episode because this is we're gonna talk about all of it. But just
I think I know where you're going with this.
I just have to mention the ripping out of her other eyeball was probably the funniest thing in all these movies. That was so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Just like, and it's such a serious character too. Like, um, she's kind of like the basically like the penultimate boss to fight before going to meet Bill. So it feels like it's gonna be such like a big, huge battle, and then just like nah, it's just like no, just rip her eye out, it'll be fine.
In fact, I think she's the only person on the list that she wanted to kill that ends up just staying alive in the end.
Yeah, I mean, she's literally rendered completely useless by removing her other eye. So
And she's swailing around in the van, like ripping everything to pieces,
that
while
was so
there's
fun.
still that black mamba inside. So you can pretty much
Yeah,
interpret that she got bitten in the end.
that's also true.
Mhm.
Um, there's. I think I'll probably have to watch this movie or both movies a couple more times, and I'll catch more stuff like that because like there's a lot of good symbolism that would definitely go unnoticed on a first watch. Like the whole idea of their code names and the Black Mamba being like Beatrix's like
Mhm.
code name and stuff, and the use of that symbol. I think that's really cool. Like like unintentionally, she did end up killing everyone, even Bud and Elle through the
Hmm.
actual Black Mamba. So that's pretty interesting, actually.
Yeah.
Well, she didn't kill Bud herself, did she?
Yeah. No, she didn't.
You know, I think I just have to get to it. I think that's really one of the things that I didn't like about this movie. You know, maybe you did, and you know, more power to you, but I just found it mostly pretty anticlimactic, if that
Hmm.
makes any sense.
What part about it was anticlimactic?
Well, you know, the whole duology is building up to her killing every single person on her list. You know, everybody who wronged her that day in that church. But he just opens his case, picks out money, and then gets bitten by a snake, just like that.
Hmm.
It is pretty underwhelming, and I think that whole part of the movie is probably why I don't think it's as good as the first part. There's so much fluff with Bud that I don't think needed to be there. Like there's the whole scene of him going to the bar and like getting like told off by his boss. Like why was that in the what did that add? I don't know what that added to the movie.
I
Yep.
could argue.
I didn't even remember. Like that's how pointless it is.
I I can't agree with the pointlessness of it because I could argue that because you know how it shows that a lot of the Deadly Viper Assassin Squad, right? It shows that they were pretty like successful afterwards. Like the first woman that she kills in the first movie, I was technically the second one, but you know she has a kid. Then Lucy Liu's character, you know, she's like the head of you know some organization. I forgot already, but uh, and then you see Ellie, and you know she's fucking rich. She's like killing it. But then you see Bud, and he's the one guy that really genuinely kind of does feel bad for what he did to Beatrix. And you also just see that his life really fucking sucks, right? And a lot of what it's showing is also justifying why he didn't just kill her in the coffin too. He does genuinely feel pretty fucking terrible, and he says, um, pretty early in the movie, like she deserves her revenge, right? So that's why I don't see Bud's entire scenes as pointless. And yeah, I also just really enjoy the character of Bud overall. He feels like a just Tarantino character to me, you know? I
Um,
just found him really interesting.
Well, I get where you're going with that, and I understand to a point. I do think he's the most remorseful out of all of them, but I don't
Hmm.
think that really justifies like him being like actual like he actually cares. Like he still was
Hmm.
gonna he still intended to kill Beatrix either way, and
Yeah.
also like I mean he's still pretty much like he's still a shithead for the most part. Like
Yeah.
he just wants to like get ahead in life, and and the only reason he's on the team in the first place is just because he's Bill's brother. So I
Hmm.
I do think that his character is interesting, and I think that they did some stuff with him that in theoretically is interesting. I just think that his story gets in the way of the more important aspects of this movie. And like again, I like him as a character. I think he's interesting, and I think that that you could do more with him. I just don't think that in this movie that's already like over 2 hours long, that I just don't think his whole story needed to be so thought out. Like I would have rather seen some more of the other characters, or even just more of
Hmm.
Bill. Like the ending of the film is really interesting too. I would have been fine if that got dragged out a little bit longer too, just to see like them talk, because it's so interesting at the end, like kind of hearing the Bill and Beatrix's like little lovers quarrel, interesting little game that they're playing with each other,
Hmm.
because the whole ending of the film is is so different from everything else, because up until that point it's just murder 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 all the way, but then you get
Hmm.
to the ending and it's like, oh well, the daughter's actually alive, so do we even kill Bill at the end here anyway? And I did find all that interesting. I just I just just the whole part with Buck just felt like too much of a tangent little side quest to go on to see all that stuff. I just didn't think it was necessary.
But you also said that he's the most remorseful, that he truly believes she deserves her revenge. At the
Mhm.
same time, I don't really think that meshes very well with his actions because he just straight up buries her alive. That's some of people's biggest fear. I think if he was
Mhm.
truly remorseful, then he would have just killed her right there.
That's a good point.
That's well, killing her right there. He's how he's Bill's brother, right? Bill, you know how Bill could have just killed her in that hospital bed? He didn't, right? Because he respects her and they're sort of he respects like just how strong-willed she is, and that's the same with uh Buck. I do believe is that his name? Yeah, I don't know. I believe that's the same with him. He didn't
I
want to
think
just
it's I
kill her
think
while
it's
she was
Bud.
down like that. Yeah, he did. He wanted to still give her a chance because he still deep down does believe that she does deserve her revenge, right? And I mean, he probably like, come on, you can't just kill the bride. Like, I don't know, killing her when she's down. It kind of goes against their morals, in my opinion, at least. At least that's
I
how I see it.
Yeah, I get that, but I think it's a little bit different because like at the start of the movie, I mean, Ellie was or the start of the first movie, Ellie was clearly gonna kill her, and she was really upset when Bill told her she couldn't.
Hmm.
But you still have to remember that Bill still like loves Beatrix. Like
Yeah.
I mean, he clearly like they've got a bone to pick with each other, and obviously they're gonna one of them is gonna end up dead by the end. But
Hmm.
like they and so he still respects her, and he still like and he still loves her, but like Buck doesn't have any reason to. He really has no reason to. Like the only reason I can think of is because that he's Bill's brother and he wants the best for his brother. But I don't know. I just think his character is just not befitting of the themes of the movie.
Um, I I don't know. His whole thing seems to be a regret, right? And I feel like regret does almost fit it. And just what happens, like I don't know. His whole thing is just showing the bad side of what they all did to her, right? And I don't know. That's just the way I was seeing it.
Um, I also wanted to go back a bit to the part where you said she's already down. About
Hmm.
that, she just
Hmm.
straight up gets shot in the chest by a fucking shotgun, just
Yeah,
like
it's pretty
that.
crazy.
And then
Literally John Wick.
and then she just and she still has the strength to break out of that coffin and climb out of the ground. Like, okay, I know this is Kill Bill, like these movies are very
Hmm.
exaggerated, but at least in the first film, in the opening, she gets shot in
Hmm.
the head. Okay, yeah, she was most likely dead, but there was a chance that she survived that, and she did. And you
Hmm.
really felt the pain when she was in the hospital from it. But that shotgun blast, I think, should just straight up have killed her right there.
Um, there's actually an important line where he just flat out says he shot her with rock salt. Rock
Oh
salt's not
yeah,
going to penetrate.
that is true. He did say that.
Yeah.
So there is an
It
explanation.
tears up her skin, but it's not penetrating her vital organs at all.
He did explain that, so I will give that point to that. But there is just like the underlying fact remaining that the first film, since it's a little bit more cartoony, you can suspend your disbelief more. But since the
Hmm.
second film does try to take itself more seriously, when and it for the most part it does do a good job. When the more goofy stuff happens, it just feels out of place. The tone just doesn't mesh well if you're going for different styles. So that's why, like, even though I love like the eyeball thing and I love the like, oh, just cut people's limbs off all the time, in the second movie it feels a little bit more out of place just because of that movie's tone. And and it's not nearly as much as the first one, but it is worth mentioning.
Hmm.
I actually agree with that.
Yeah, so that's basically where I am. On both of the movies. I love part one. I think it's so unique, and I do want to circle back to that a little bit since I was kind of cutting off at the beginning. We'll circle back to part one again for a little bit. Um,
Hmm.
but I just think that part one is a stronger film overall. Just in a vacuum, it's just a stronger film overall. But two does have more interesting stuff with the narrative. And what do you guys all think about the ending anyway? Like, do you like how that all played out in the ending of like their kind of conversation of explaining their reasoning for why they're trying to murder each other?
Well, interesting that you ask, because I'm kind of torn on it, because, you know, I get that these movies don't always have to be gore and violence. Like, I can accept the ending being more dialogue and just sitting back, reflecting on the whole series. But I just don't think it's very effective, because nothing nothing that Bill and Beatrix talk about, it really there's really not that much to be learned for the audience. Like, you can pretty much pick, you can pretty much put the pieces together if you just watch the films yourself.
Yeah, I kind of understand that. It's just the ending of part two is so hard to talk about for me because I when I'm going through the first film, especially, like, I expect a more goofy tone, and it's not like it's not a like a surprise or anything when you get to the end, and you see that her daughter's alive, because they make that fact very clear at the end of the first movie. Um, but I like the way that Uma Thurman reacts to everything that happens at the end of the movie. I think that's probably the my favorite part about the ending, is just seeing her reactions to everything, and Beatrix kind of like getting a like satisfaction from um from finding out her daughter is alive, and in the end she ends up defeating Bill and stuff, and that's all satisfying. And probably, so I want to bring it up. My favorite shot of the movie is probably right at the end. There's a scene before the credits roll where she is just lying on the floor of a bathroom and crying. I
Mhm.
thought that was I really thought that was a special moment, because it kind of shows like the journey she's gone through, and how she had to kill someone that she thought she loved in order to, like, like remedy like what what he had done to her, and like kind of be free from him. So
Mhm.
it that I do find that, like, that's why I think the second part is so much more of an artistic film and so much more poignant, because it does take the characters in such a dramatically different direction and make them so much more interesting instead of mysterious. So
Mhm.
that part about it I do like. um and yeah, so that's my favorite shot of the movie. I like how it ends. um but yeah, just the overall like vibe of the ending is just like it's just it's such a departure from everything else. That's why it's just so difficult to talk about and hard to get into.
Uh, I think I think the final chapter, Face to Face, is probably my favorite thing in the entire series. The the first reaction that you see Beatrix give when she sees her daughter, and they're like, "Bang, we shot you." Just her reaction alone, like, genuinely made me rethink just everything about the entire series. And God, her acting was so phenomenal. Like, she really played it off so well, and it's so emotionally satisfying too. Like, the whole chapter is just one emotional payoff, because, like, if you really break it down, I guess, like, a lot of the story of Kill Bill is just, two lovers who kind of fucking hate each other at the same time, in a way. And seeing them finally meet like that, and seeing her reaction to her daughter being alive, and how Bill is parenting her, it was just so emotionally satisfying for me. And watching them sort of explain their motivations to each other, while still also being pretty like violent too, was also incredibly engaging for me to watch. And because the way, also just the way Tarantino shoots it too, I love it so much.
It's especially thanks to his dialogue writing. Like,
Mhm.
that's I think his biggest skill.
Yeah.
But Uma Thurman's performance, did she get any awards for it?
Probably at smaller film festivals, I'm sure. I doubt, like, I don't know. I have to search it up, but she really should have, because her tears were so real, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely think that she and the actor who plays Bill, I forget his name. He's really only, interestingly, he's only really in martial arts movies, even though
Hmm.
he's like American or whatever. So, but he does such a great job playing it off too.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
I think they work so well off of each other that that ending works, even if you
Hmm.
aren't expecting it. Just because of their dynamic and
Hmm.
it's just yeah, Uma Thurman definitely deserves some awards for this, but also I understand that 2004 was a pretty stacked year. So I mean,
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, and then also the with the second one, I just love how the first one builds up to the presence of Bill, because the first one, he's just like sort of he just has a presence throughout the whole story. You only ever see shots of his hand with a samurai sword. Then I love how the second one kicks off immediately with seeing him at that wedding, and his introduction is so badass. And again, a lot of this is just the way Tarantino writes dialogue. Like, I understand that because the first one, there's like, it's probably like 20% dialogue, 80% action, right? But with the second one, it's probably like 20% action and 80% dialogue. And the reason it's not boring is just because of how Tarantino writes it. Like, it's just so fun to watch, and each I'm always learning something new about the characters and just their really weird campy quips and everything. I just love it so much.
yeah, I definitely like that part about it, and I do think that the writing is strong enough to carry the film even without a lot of action. Um, Especially like during that finale with when she's explaining like her really probably my most favorite moments from the second part are just centered around uh Beatrix just like explaining something or just like going like just having like a moment because like there's that ending at towards the end where she's on the bathroom floor crying, and also when
Hmm.
she first finds out she's pregnant. I love that whole exchange she has with the other assassin. Like that's
Hmm.
that was such a cute moment, like for no reason. Like that really didn't need
Yeah.
to be there to like or that it didn't need to be that explained, but I really liked the direction that scene went. So
Hmm.
I thought that was really special. I think that was something that was unique that I really liked about that. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I think it really is just Bill Bill's like precedent in the story. Like from in part one, he's just really a shadowy figure that like you're gonna build up to eventually. But then
Hmm.
starting off two, like immediately having him there just already just like sets the tonal difference between the two films, and I think that was done for the better.
Hmm.
Um, really that whole opening scene with them in the church, and you know what's about to happen, but it's like
Hmm.
it's built up so well. You're like, how is this gonna go rotten? Like it doesn't seem like it's gonna go. It doesn't seem like it's gonna go that bad. But then they come out with their guns ablazing. And you're like, ah, damn. So this is how we got here.
Hmm.
Um, so I like all that. I love that scene too at the beginning there. Just that whole sequence was really good. It sets a good it sets the tone for the rest of that movie. So I think that was well done. But Samuel L. Jackson, why did they hire him for that role? That was completely unnecessary.
I even forgot he was in the movie.
He
Wait,
literally has like 3 lines, and he has no importance to the movie at all. I don't know why they hired him for that, but okay.
Samuel L. Jackson, you said?
Yeah, he plays the organist.
Oh yeah, well, it's a Tarantino movie. Of course they're gonna have Samuel L. Jackson.
Oh yeah, he's in like Pulp Fiction and stuff. I forgot. I haven't
Yeah,
seen
he's in like half of
film
his
in a while.
filmography.
Yeah, I wouldn't know, but
Django
still
Unchained,
was.
which I saw recently.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, well, I haven't seen those, so don't spoil them for me.
Oh, we won't.
But yeah, still I can confidently say that the first part for me is already like one of my favorite movies I've seen.
Hmm.
I just love the style of it, and it makes me excited to see more Tarantino films, even if more of them are more like part two. I think I'm still gonna really enjoy them. Um,
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm still excited about it. Um, and I'm still like, you know, I really enjoyed it for what it was. Like even just I want to touch on some of the other elements of the film that, stuff that usually you wouldn't even think about, like just even from the the opening and closing of both movies. Like I like how the first movie opens with just the fourth film by Quentin Tarantino. Like just it's so dramatic how even like the white
Mhm.
text is even like very very dramatic, and I thought that was interesting too. I like that. It made his style even more clear to me, so I like that. And also the ending of the second movie. I like how it keeps flipping between styles for the credits, because like you get your normal credit roll at first, like giving the character names, like for the big actors in the film, you know,
Mhm.
with clips from from both movies and stuff. Um, but then I also like how then it kind of takes on this weirdly old 50s 60s style of credits for a little bit, where it's like they put like a filter over it and stuff. I don't know why that was done, but it was a cool decision nonetheless.
Mhm.
I was actually planning to say something else, but I think the conversation has gone so much further that it would be trying to just go back to that.
No, we can
Would
go
you, do
back
you
because
Oh
mind?
yeah, no,
I
go
want to
back.
go back.
Okay.
I want to
Yeah.
go back eventually anyway. So go ahead and
Okay.
you can say whatever you want.
Because I'm not sure when we're going to end the podcast. So I'm trying to stay within a time limit.
Oh, it's
Mhm.
okay. Like we can wrap whenever we need to. So just say what you need to say.
All right. So with the first film, if the film, the title itself already says Kill Bill. You really have the indication that that Bill is kind of this, bl- generic bad guy who you have supposed to be no sympathy for. The fact that you don't see his face in the first film really sets that kind of tone. But then the second film comes in and just completely changes that. Like you understand his situation a lot more and you start to sympathize with him. But at
Mhm.
the same time, it also works because you understand Beatrix's side of the situation. Like she becomes pregnant and then she feels vulnerable for her child. But you understand why she ran off on him. But at the same time, yeah, that's kind of a dick move. So in general, I
Well,
just really love movies that center around people doing bad things, but you
Mhm.
but you can still sympathize with them in the end. That's well, sorry, what were you gonna say?
no, yeah, I like where you went with that. I think that's a really good point to make. Is like how the second movie does make him like so much more of a character. Like he's not like just this big bad final boss guy. Like he's like an actual character, and there are elements about him that you understand, and you kind of you kind of empathize with in a way. Like you understand where he's coming from, and even he has remorse for what happened. He even says they kind of play a joke off of it, but he even says like he overreacted when he shot up a church and intended to kill his uh, the bearer of his daughter. So a little bit far, but he does reel it back in. He actually does look after BB. Uh,
Mhm.
so and it seems like he did a good job. So, and that aspect you can respect him, but you also still need to go back to the fact, and I think most people realize this. You you're still rooting for Beatrix, because
Yeah.
even though there are elements about Bill that might become more understandable at the end of the second film, like he's still just like this inglorious killer who only knows who only knows that he can do one thing, and that's be a mass murderer, an assassin. And they even bring this point up. I think like a big theme towards the end of the movie is they keep going back to this theme of uh, Beatrix's life would never have worked, um, at like being a mother and a wife, because she's just like a natural born killer. And I think
Mhm.
that's like where the main discrepancy comes between them, because even though I think she ends up agreeing with him, like she could never be anything other than a killer. I think that's really strange way to do it, because like at the start of the first movie, it's abundantly made clear that they can, because that first lady, whose name I forget because it was so long ago, has started a family at that point. Like, um, and I think that's actually like a really smart way to open the movies with that. I didn't understand it at first, but when you look back on it, it makes so much sense that is the way the movies would start. Um, so I really like that dynamic there of like Bill believing that she can only be a killer and she has to be a killer, and Beatrix not wanting that life for her daughter. And in the end, obviously we root for her because you know we don't want that. Nobody wants that.
One line that really stuck out to me in that regard was when, during the opening church scene, she asks him, "Would you please be nice?" And then he responds, "I've never been nice." Like that really goes back to his killer instincts. The fact that he believes he can only be a killer, just like Beatrix.
And I think that's the main crux of the film is deciding like it deciding like what line are you willing to cross, or what line aren't you willing to cross to like protect those you love. And like Beatrix's whole deal is she wanted to raise her daughter in a good environment, not under the not under the parental role of killers. So, and that's why she's so admirable, is because she was willing to put her life aside, and the enormous amounts of wealth and just the talent she has. She was willing to put that aside to make a better life for her daughter, and I think that's what ultimately makes her, the 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 hero, basically, even though she is a killer. So yeah, I think there's a lot of good theming in both movies that can be taken into account when you watch them. Especially on when I watch these again, I'll definitely be able to appreciate that aspect a lot more. Um, but so yeah, overall, my main thoughts are the first movie is amazing. I love the style. I love the direction. I love the animated sequence that didn't need to be there, but it was, and it was awesome. Um, and the second movie I also really love. I just wish it had been cut down a little bit more. I think I don't know if I said this in my letterbox review, but I I imagine a world where like the two movies are cut down a little bit more, and then they're just like spliced together, and I think it would either be terrible or it'd be the most amazing movie ever. So
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that because the first film is so ambiguous about its climax, but would that have worked if it was just the middling chunk of a whole movie? I don't think it would, honestly.
yeah, that's true. So I think we'll wrap here in a second, because we've gone on a little while, and I'll have to figure out how to edit this together, because that first part did not go so well.
Yeah.
Um but yeah, also, I don't know if you guys know this, and I'm just an animation nerd, so I just have to talk about it. But like, do you know the studio or whoever did the animated part for part one?
I do not.
No.
Well, I'll have to look on my own, but that sequence is so cool. Like it goes so unnecessarily hard for an anime sequence. Like they could have played they could have played it like straight and used a lot of cliches, like anime cliches, and I still would have thought it was really cool. But they went the extra mile with that scene, with like probably like there was just so much cool like shots with it. Like there's one scene where Oren is like sniping some guy from a rooftop through like the windshield of a car, and it follows the bullet all the way through his skull into the other side. Like that's such a cool thing, and I know that has been done in other movies before. Like I think in one of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies, they did that
Yeah.
same gimmick, like where there's a person who's like shot through the face, and you go like kind of like the camera moves through the hole that appears. But seeing it in animation was so cool. Like I was totally not expecting it, and For anyone who's curious, if anyone was wondering, the moment I cried at in the first movie was when Oren as a child is underneath the bed, and like she just kind of has to hold her breath while like her mother's blood is just like pooling up above her and splashing on her face. Like that was so unnecessarily cool. Like
Hmm.
I was shocked by that.
I think the music does a lot of the heavy lifting for that entire sequence too, the entire animated sequence.
Oh
The
yeah.
music goes so hard in that whole sequence, honestly.
Yeah, I agree with that. Just that part, literally that part of the movie. If I could, I could watch a whole series based on that. So,
Hmm.
you have anything to say about that part?
Yeah, honestly, you two have put it to words already for me, but at the same time, ha- allez, we we're both so incredibly shocked that that was there, considering that Tarantino has never made an animated film. But yeah, it's a film with a lot of Japanese influence, so it was pretty much inevitable, don't you think?
Yeah, when you look
Hmm.
back on it, it makes so much sense. But like, just going into it, I didn't even know like it was like that much of like a samurai like kung fu film. So after I realized that, it kind of and it is interesting. Like a lot of Western big cinematic action movies like this do take a lot of inspiration from martial arts films. Like John Wick has done it a lot as well. Um, and I think it's just because those movies are so influential for the genre that it makes sense that you'd wanna pay homage to those movies because they're so incredible. So
Hmm.
yeah, it makes sense in retrospect, but just going into it, I had no idea. I was not expecting it all. But that was my favorite part of the first movie. I love that part too. But and I'll have to look into see who actually animated that part. But overall, really cool. Any final thoughts on these two films that you want to bring up?
I think that's all for me, at least.
Dan, is there anything else you want to say real quick?
Oh, yeah, I love both films, and I don't know, maybe eventually, because I mean, again, it did take me like 2 years of sort of accepting what the second one is to sort of get into it more. Because I did feel almost, when I first watched it, I did almost feel disappointed that there wasn't nearly as much action, a lot of it's dialogue, and Bud's whole subplot going on. I also wasn't as into it as I was the first one, but for some reason, that second watch, all of it just came together for me. Like after a couple of years, it all just came together, and I realized like the importance of it, and just I don't know how thematically relevant all of it is. And yeah, I just fucking love both of them, you know.
Yeah, I understand that, and that's part of the joy of movies is like you can go back to something and rediscover something about it like years later and be like, wow, this is way better than I expected, or you can go back to something and say, wow, this is horrible. So Kill Bill 2 definitely
My,
feels like one of those movies that I'll appreciate more on further watches. But yeah, that
Mhm.
I kind of agree with that.
you know, I think you've convinced me to give the second one another shot because I didn't like it all that much. Maybe that didn't
Mhm.
come across in my commentary here, but you know, you've given some good points. I think I'll give it
Mhm.
another shot soon enough.
There we go. I'm glad that I gave you a new perspective on it. I'm very glad.
Yep, that's what we're all about here on the Between Two Wise Trees podcast. It's all about giving our awesome opinions and being right all the time and always
Oh
being
yeah.
respectful. Respect, that's what
Right.
it's all about here. So, well, thank you very, very much, ECB, for joining us. It was an honor to have you with. And hopefully in the future we can have you back on for another episode. I'm probably seeing Perfect Blue in theaters next month, so that will be an awesome film to talk about with you because I know you're a fan
Yeah,
of that
yeah,
movie.
yeah. Watch it as quickly as possible, please.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited to see that when I get to it. But yeah, thank you for joining. I'm sorry for the technical difficulties on my end. I had no idea that I would be the problem, but apparently I'm the problem. So I've learned a good valuable lesson. Um, you know where to find us all. You can find Extremely Critical Belgian on Letterboxd. You can find Dan the Film Guy on Letterboxd. You can find Adrian Switchdog on Letterboxd. And just thank you guys for tuning in. If whoever's watching this, this will eventually be edited up on a YouTube channel at some point. That's my intention, at least. So hopefully that happens in the future. Feel free to give feedback. Feel free to give any suggestions on what to do better or films we should watch for it. Because we'd love topics to talk about. So yeah, and if you want to be a guest in the future too, you can always contact me. We can probably work it out. So just ask and thou shall receive. So I think that's about it. Thank you for joining on this episode, ECB, and for bearing with me. So thank you for joining.
You're welcome. I'm sorry for stuttering so much. I hope it goes better in the future. It was nice. Thank you.
No,
you're
you're all
great
good,
guest, man.
You're great. Love your reviews. Okay, well, thank you all for tuning in. If you did, thank you, Dan, for helping me through my terrible problems. And
Absolutely.
I will probably be recording from my car in the future since it's apparently better. So,
dude, yeah, you've gone very smoothly so far.
Okay, good. That's good. I love that. So I've learned a lesson. That's good. All right. We'll see y'all next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.